Hello, I'm going to interpret the birth chart of Donovan using a system of astrology known as Vibrational Astrology. This is the 9th video in a series of 14 videos where we interpret the birth charts of musicians. I'm going to assume that you know how to interpret harmonic charts. If you don't, I have a link to a video on how to interpret harmonic charts. If you want to see the links to all 14 videos in the series, I've got a link here to the first video in the series, which contains a link to all the other videos in this series of 14 tutorials. Now, here's the birth chart of Donovan. Can we find Donovan in this birth chart? You'll notice he's got 10 degrees Gemini rising. Venus is at 13 degrees Gemini. Uranus is at 15 degrees Gemini. He's got a Venus-Uranus conjunction with under a 3-degree orb. I'm going to show you something interesting that you can do in the Sirius software. It's not something you would necessarily do, but just to demonstrate something that's interesting. Let me just do it, and I'll show you why. I'll tell you why I'm doing it after I do it. I'm going to go to listings. Here I've got his chart up here. I'm going to go to listings, and I'm going to select harmonic list grid and select harmonic aspect grid. And I'm going to set the highest harmonic to 200, and I'm going to use a 16-degree orb. Okay, I'll show you why I'm doing this in a second. So this is going to tell me what harmonic every pair of planets is in up to the 200th harmonic. You click OK, and let me scroll this over a little bit here so you can see the whole thing. For Sun and Moon, the Sun and Moon are 6/19ths of a circle with a 0.58 strength, which means it's strong. They're also 7/22 with a 0.30 strength, which means not as strong. It's also 13/41 with a 0.72, and it's a 19/60ths, 0.86, and so on. Look at all these fractions, all the way up to here. It may sound unbelievable. If you have this idea of unaspected planets, there's no such thing in harmonics. Every pair is forming multiple aspects, and that may seem overwhelming, but we have a way of finding out what's most important. Well, first of all, you'll notice that some of these have very weak strength, like 0.02 and so on. But anyway, it's interesting. And if we go down to the Venus-Uranus, because they're conjunct, and an interesting thing happens when you have planets conjunct. I'm scrolling down here, and here's where the Venus-Uranus starts. They're conjunct, tells me that. And they're also a 1/127th, 1/128th, 1/129th, 1/130th. See what's happening? It's going to be 1 with 127, 128, 129, 30. These are sequential, and reaches its strongest, no orb, 0.99 strength, at 1/132nd. So the Venus and Uranus are exactly 1/132nd. Anyway, this is an interesting listing. I don't use this very often, but if you're ever wondering what all the harmonics are between the planets, that's what this tells you. So there's occasions where it's kind of fun and for exploring ideas to get this. So it's not one of the basic things that I use all the time, but I thought I would show it to you. And here on this slide, I've copied and pasted from this table a summary, and I put a little red square showing that Venus and Uranus are exactly 1/132nd. What that means is that they're conjunct, but they're also in 132nd harmonic. Harmonic just means the denominator. And I also believe that when you have 1 in the numerator, it makes it very strong, very singular, like very strong 132nd emphasis. Well, 132 equals 11 times 12. So that would mean that in the 12th harmonic, it's an 11th harmonic aspect, and also in the 11th harmonic, it's a 12th harmonic aspect. So when you factor the number, it means that, for example, in the 11th harmonic, it will be a 12th harmonic aspect. So let's look at his 11th harmonic, and we should see that Venus and Uranus are going to be something like semi-sextile, which is a 12th harmonic, or a quincunx, which is a 5/12ths. So let's see what happens. Here's the Venus, here's the 11th harmonic chart, and there it is, just as we expected. Venus and Uranus with a 1-minute orb, virtually exact, semi-sextile. So it's interesting because we're expecting Venus-Uranus to be important in the charts of rock and roll musicians. We expect it often to be important in the 11th harmonic, but here it's only a semi-sextile, and it's not part of any large pattern. So it so far does not seem to confirm our theory that Venus and Uranus will be strong in the 11th harmonic. I mean, there are many other things that can happen, but it's one thing. But it is curious that they're exactly semi-sextile, and there is this, a trine from Moon to Uranus. But overall, it doesn't indicate a strong rock and roll pattern, we might say. And this is often, what I'm going to show you here is how we make discoveries. We notice something that looks similar to our theory, not exactly what we expect because it's not a large pattern with lots of red lines or lots of green lines. There's only 2 green lines, soft aspects coming out of Uranus. Nothing dramatic. But here's an idea. Let's look at the 66th harmonic. Why 66? Because we're going to multiply 11 times 6. That means the aspects will go down by 6. Divide 6 into 12, it's going to turn the Venus-Uranus into an opposition. So it's going to zoom in to the soft aspect level. Okay, so we're doing some advanced vibrational astrology analysis here. The idea is simple. If we let me explain this very simply. We take the 11th harmonic and we want to see details of the soft aspects. Right? Why soft aspects? Because this is soft, in essence. These are trines and 1/12. So we'll multiply by 3, or 6. And if I multiply by 3, it would turn the Venus-Uranus into, what would it turn it into? A square. How do I know that? Because 3 times 30 is 90. And 6 times 30 is 180. So if I go up 6 levels, I'm going to make all the angular distances 6 times greater. So it's going to show, but here's the bottom line of this. This is why this is really important. I'm going to see higher levels of the soft aspects. Let's see what happens. I'm predicting Venus and Uranus will be opposition. Here's the 66th harmonic chart. I've got all kinds of crazy lines in here, but don't worry about that. Just notice this for a moment. There's the Venus-Uranus. So in the 66th harmonic, which means a high soft 11. What does soft 11 mean? A 3 times 11, or in this case 6 times 11. You know sextiles are soft, so this is a soft 11. That's going to mean the restlessness, the movement, the dynamism of 11, but smooth. A smooth, flowing, like a waltz, like a dun 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 dun, like a nice flowing feeling. It's nice, da da da, just really nice and flowing. It's 11 times 6. So you're going to get this nice, flowing, bouncy feeling from the 33rd and 66th harmonic, which is not what we think of in rock and roll. But let's follow this and see where it takes us. What we find out is that Donovan has a Venus-Uranus opposition, and it's trine. Venus is trine Pluto, and Pluto is sextile Uranus. So we have our Venus-Uranus-Pluto. But it's all in this very smooth, very inner level. Well, is Donovan really a heavy rock musician? Jennifer, Juniper, da 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 da. Jennifer, Juniper. So you're getting this light feeling, this Donovan feeling, very sensitive, very light. It's a rock and roll combination, Venus, Uranus, Pluto, in this very light, etheric inner level. Amazing, isn't it? So this is how we start to come up with new ideas and insights, is we're seeing the basic theory that we've had, but now we're finding we can go to very, very high harmonics. And this is what we find over and over again. The harmonics go very high. You can be in the 66th harmonic. You get a trine, excuse me, a trine in the 66th is actually 66 times 3, whatever that is. tells me here it's 198. So we're up into very high harmonics. In other words, the denominators are very high, and it's still important. Very hard to believe for most astrologers that this could be true, but I believe that what is happening in astrology is there's an intricate, beautiful, exquisite tapestry of energies, and the usual astrology we do only captures a superficial level of it. Now, the Pluto sextile Uranus, the actual harmonic is going to be the harmonic of the aspect 6 times 66. And here, I've calculated this out, 66 times 6 is the 396th harmonic. And if we do a little bit of arithmetic, I won't go over this, but basically what we find out is that the Uranus and Pluto are a 59, 396. 59 in the numerator, 396 in the denominator aspect. And the angle between Uranus and Pluto, if we look at the aspect grid in the natal chart, is 53 degrees 40 minutes. This angle is 53 degrees, a little more than 38 minutes. So it's a 59, 396 with less than a 2-minute orb. It sounds unbelievable, but I think that this actually explains a lot of who Donovan is, going back to this wheel, that he is this light, vibrant, flowing 11th harmonic pattern. And also notice, by the way, there's a grand trine in this chart, the 66th harmonic. Mercury, Venus, Pluto. There's another grand trine over here, Saturn, Jupiter, Moon. There are 2 grand trines. The lines are not super thick, but there's 2 grand trines, and there's all kinds of midpoints going on. So he has a huge amount of stuff going on in the 66th harmonic, and it makes sense. If you think about it, it really makes sense. The light, flowing, sensitive music, and as we look closer and closer at the planets, it's going to be, I think, even clearer that this is Donovan. But we do have the rock combination. Venus, Uranus, and Pluto, the trines and sextiles coming off this opposition as one of the basic parts of it. But there's a lot more to it, obviously. He's got all these aspects. When you see a huge pattern, it means there's huge energy. He is vibrating to the 66, and he is producing this flowing, beautiful music, and becomes a huge star at a very young age. Okay. Let's go to this next one. Next slide here. I already covered everything on the previous slide. So, okay, I've talked about this. That what we're doing here is we're building models. In analyzing this charts, what we're doing is we're seeing if we can find consistent theories that fit the charts. And what we find here, number one, our model for pop and rock stars is Venus and Uranus in 5 or 11 base harmonics, combined with other planets in either aspects or midpoint structures. Number two, what we see in Donovan, I'm reviewing what I've said here, just to drive these points home. What we see in Donovan is soft 11-based harmonics, not what we usually see in rock stars. But he's also not our usual rock star. His music is lighter, it's brighter, it's more mellow quality to it. And based on years of work with vibrational astrology, I'm fully confident that harmonics go up to 360. And here we're seeing that one of the aspects, if we go back to that, the Uranus sextile Pluto is above 360. It's at 396. And we often get indications that the harmonics go up to at least 500. What are the indications? An example like this, looking at Donovan's chart, where if we include these aspects, it makes sense. Now remember what we're doing here is we're building models. I'm not arguing that this is absolutely the truth and this is how astrology works. I'm saying I'm exploring ideas to see if we can build a model that will describe every single musician that we've picked out to study. And I think if you look for normal, just trines and squares and so on, if you just look at rulerships, if you look at houses, you look at zodiac signs, you're not going to find something consistent that describes the people. We're building a model here which is showing promise that it really works. That this is no joke, this is not just a game, that astrology actually really can describe energy flow. Now, when we look at this 66th harmonic chart in more detail, let's see exactly what we're seeing. We see things, for example, like Sun is conjunct the Saturn and, Sun conjunct Saturn, Pluto midpoint. Here's the Sun, here's Pluto, here's Saturn, happens to be in between them. It's also conjunct the Venus, Jupiter midpoint. Neptune is conjunct Mercury, Saturn. Neptune's opposition Jupiter, Pluto. So we're seeing two midpoints, the Venus, Jupiter, and the Saturn, Pluto. Two midpoints that are focused on the Sun, and two midpoints that are focused on Neptune. Jupiter, Pluto, and Mercury, Saturn. Right here, very close to it. So two planets, the Sun and Neptune, both having two midpoint structures. We call this a midpoint isotrap. It's an extremely powerful pattern when you have one planet that forms two midpoint structures. And here we see the orbs, by the way, if you're curious what the orbs are. That's Sun and a diagram of it. The Sun at Venus, Jupiter midpoint, 1 degree, 10 minutes. The Sun at Saturn, Pluto midpoint, 9 minutes. And here are the two midpoints to Neptune. The Mercury, Saturn's 1 degree, 17 minutes. And the Jupiter, Pluto, only 1 minute. Okay, now, here is something absolutely mind-boggling. Whether this is a coincidence or what's going on here, this is mind-boggling. Look at this. I've taken the two grand trines that I told you about. I told you there were two grand trines. We looked at it. And I made them darker so that they're clear. I put one in light blue, and I put one in green, right? So just so we can see them more clearly. Now, when you have two grand trines, there are going to be three axes of symmetry. And the Neptune, in his chart, is right at the axis of symmetry. Can you see this pattern? Once you see it, it's very cool. It looks like a little guy, like where these are his legs, and these are his arms, and these are like his hands up or his shoulders or something. Anyway, it's a symmetrical pattern. I put this dark brown or maroon sort of color here to show that Neptune is falling in the middle of the two grand trines. And that's how we're getting these midpoint structures. It's taking Mercury from one grand trine, Saturn from the other grand trine, Pluto from the one grand trine, and Jupiter from the other grand trine. So his Neptune is right in between the two grand trines. And amazing, this is really mind-boggling. The Sun is at another axis of symmetry. Look at it for a while till if you turn your head a little bit, you'll see that the grand trines make this little kind of figure. It's like it's similar to what do they call it, Star of David or something, the six-pointed star, except the green one doesn't fall in the middle of the blue one, but the Sun does. The Sun is right in between the two of the pairs of planets, where we take one planet, for example, we take Jupiter from one of the grand trines, Venus from the other, and the Sun is right in the middle. There are three axes of symmetries. The other one is over here, and there's no planet. So what we have is we have three planets in one grand trine, the light blue one, three in the green one, that's 6 of the planets, and then 2 of the other planets fall with the midpoint of it. So what we have, it's an extraordinary pattern. What we have is 2 grand trines and 2 other planets, Sun and Neptune, being focal points of planets from the grand trines. It's an incredibly intricate, beautiful pattern in the 66. And notice the planets that are focused. Sun at Venus, Jupiter, the Neptune, the imagination, the dream. We can analyze all the details of this, but Neptune at Mercury, Saturn is going to be the folk songs, the storyline to it. It's just, I don't want this video to go on for like an hour just on this one person. Let's just take it this far, that he has an incredibly, beautifully, extraordinary pattern in the 66th harmonic, indicating that he has an exceptional ability to make flowing, creative movement. And he does it with music. Why music? One reason is because Venus-Uranus opposition is part of this whole big pattern. And the trines and sextile to Pluto is going to further reinforce it to give it a bit of a rock feeling. It's amazing. In fact, I would even say this. Donovan's talent, his gift, is so extraordinary, it's almost surprising he didn't even take it even further, as if being one of the greatest rock stars of all time is not enough. His capacity and talent is really just mind-boggling. Just really, really amazing. So, you know, the energies that are involved, these astrological patterns that give us our talents and our gifts are really special. You know, philosophically, I think one thing we can take home from this is, you know, to treasure the gifts you have and to develop them and apply them in the best possible way. So he was born with an extraordinary gift. Just amazing. So I've mentioned this, the graceful flowing melodies of things like Jennifer, Juniper, haunting melodies, vibrant rock rhythms, but always with a lightness. Even something like Hurdy-Gurdy Man, which uses a lot of reverb, there's still a bounce and a lightness, even when he's doing something that seems more like a heavy rock feeling. So that's the magic of these simple and graceful rhythms. Just really extraordinary. So conclusions, to see a rock musician, we like to see Venus and Uranus in an 11-based harmonic, but here it shows up in the 66, so it's lighter than the usual heavy rock emphasis. The extraordinary and almost unbelievably intricate and sophisticated combination of two grand trines with the Sun and Neptune at symmetry points within the grand trines is extraordinary. Okay, so conclusion, vibrational astrology is a hugely important development in astrological theory and continues to grow far outside the scope of typical astrological theory. We see this here where we have a basic idea. We've applied it to so many rock musicians. We get to, what are we up to? This is the 9th person, I think, here, whatever we're up to. And we see that it's working a little bit differently. And we explore, we find extraordinary things that make sense, that incline us to believe that these harmonics go very, very high. A little addendum, by the way. If we use what are called parallax corrected positions, the grand trines become a little bit stronger. So in these intricate, sophisticated patterns, we can explore some other ideas in astrology. This isn't a proof or even a strong argument that parallax corrected is better to use, but when we get up into very, very high harmonics like this, it does make a difference. Anyway, it's an interesting little side note. In the series software, you can select parallax corrected positions, and then, you know, these are the orbs you get, which are a little bit different when they're not parallax corrected. Anyway, it only makes a subtle difference even with these very, very high harmonics, which have small orbs. Okay, so that's Donovan. Very, very, very interesting. I think we found him, and the principles of vibrational astrology seem to work. And as we analyze each chart, we get either confirmation of the ideas we've had, we learn new things about the people, and sometimes it expands our sense of how this model might work. Okay, my friends, thank you very much for listening. If you want to continue on to the next person in these 14 videos, the 10th one in our series of videos is singer-songwriter Paul Simon. And if you want to continue on with that, you can click on the link. And also remember the link at the beginning of the video. If you want to see links to all of the videos in this series, you can click on the link at the beginning of this tutorial, and it'll take you to the first video in the series, which has links to all of them. Thank you very much for listening. God bless. Namaste.